Hello, old friend. It's been a long time. I even had to do it in the car sometimes because, yeah, you just got to do what you got to do. Honestly, if you had to buy like one thing for twins, it would be this. It's all hands on deck. There is no sub in, sub out. It's just literally grab a baby and do what you can. Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. You're with Nicole, and if you're new here, I am a baker and a twin mum. So if you're looking for delicious recipes or any information on twin mum life, you have come to the right place. Something I get asked about all the time is what was my experience and how did I handle feeding my twins? Let's be real, being a mum of multiples is a whole different ball game. There is more than one baby to consider, and often something that seems like a simple thing to do, like feeding your baby, needs a lot more thought, preparation, and organization than usual. I also remember the twin newborn period being extremely stressful, very overwhelming, and it's tricky. You're trying to juggle two babies, you're absolutely exhausted, and you're constantly questioning yourself. So I wanted to make this video, share with you all my experience, and hopefully it will help a new twin mum or a mum of multiples, and hopefully it reaches exactly who it's meant to. So we're going to be talking about breastfeeding, bottle feeding, mixed feeding. Yes, I did them all. We're also going to be talking about expressing or pumping. We're going to be talking about feeding equipment, and then lastly, feeding schedules. There is so much to talk about. Let's get to it. My twins are 15 months old now, so I'm going to go way back to the very beginning, back to where it all began. So they were in special care nursery for 2 weeks. They were born very small and also premature. So during that time, they were on feeding tubes. It wasn't exactly the experience that I expected when you think about how your twins or your babies come into the world. But looking back in hindsight, I learned a lot of valuable information, and I am thankful for the time that I was there, even though at the time I just wanted to get home. My twins were there for 2 weeks. About the first week and a half, they were being tube fed. During that time, I started expressing milk so that we could give it to them via the tubes. So I did become quite familiar with expressing and pumping. Now it takes a little while for your milk to come in. I remember around day 5, mine came in, which was quite normal, but I do remember feeling quite worried and overwhelmed and just being like, is my milk going to come in? I need to feed these babies. But it is normal and it happens to a lot of people. So if you were in that situation, don't stress, your milk will come, I promise. While we were waiting for my milk to come in, we did have to give the babies a little bit of formula. I just wanted them to be fed and them to be full, so that is normal. I was also doing colostrum for them, but it takes a while for your colostrum to turn into milk, so we'd have to do a little bit of mixed feeding during that time. While we were in a hospital and I was expressing all the time, I did have a lot of access to consultants, including lactation consultants and all of the midwives as well. So it was amazing. I had around-the-clock support, and I could ask them any questions that I had, which was really fantastic. And being a first-time mum, I had plenty. Once the babies got off the tubes, which is a huge milestone, I cannot even tell you the relief and happiness and joy my husband and I had when we were told that the babies could start to feed from a bottle or breast. It was just amazing. At that point, everyone will start asking you, what's your plan for the babies? How are you going to feed them? Are they going to be exclusively bottle fed? What is the plan? I knew that I wanted to give my babies as much breast milk as possible, and that is because they were premature and I wanted the milk to be easy to digest on their system. And I also just felt like, because they were so small, my daughter was 1.7 kg and my son was 2.1 when they were born, so I just really wanted to give them breast milk for as long as possible. And I will say, it doesn't matter how you feed your baby, whether it be breastfeeding or bottle feeding with formula, as long as your baby is fed, that is best. So I could quickly start to see that breastfeeding 2 babies constantly around the clock and having them fully reliant on me 100% of the time was too much for one person to handle. So I decided very quickly that I wanted to mix feed my babies. I wanted to have them bottle fed and breastfed, just so that if I needed to, or if my husband needed to, or the babies needed it, someone could jump in and help me or help them feed them when they're hungry. Honestly, it was really stressful for me having 2 crying babies at the same time being hungry. I wouldn't want to leave one for, it takes a while to feed them and burp them and settle them. I wouldn't want to leave them crying for a long period of time. if at all. So I told everyone that my plan was to mix feed the twins. Honestly, in hindsight, it was a really, really good decision, and I'm so glad that I did. It also meant that I knew exactly how much milk they were going to be getting because I could monitor it and people could help me. It also allows you to keep them on the same feeding schedule, which was really important to me because having two babies at different times that need to be fed, burped, and settled, it's honestly it's just too much. You need to try and keep them on the same schedule as much as possible so you can do anything. So starting to breastfeed the babies, I started with Remy and he took to it really quite well. He did need a nipple shield to help him at the beginning. And if you don't know what a nipple shield is, it's a silicone piece that goes on the nipple to help protect your nipple initially and also help them latch. He had a really small mouth, so he just needed that extra little bit of support. And it was recommended by the lactation consultant. And as soon as it went on, he started feeding great. On the other hand, Ivy, she did not like breastfeeding and she also did not like dummies. So I'm not quite sure why she didn't like it, but she was just like the opposite of Remy. She was not keen for it and she didn't like being breastfed at all. She also gave me a blood blister the first time I tried to breastfeed her. It did not go to plan. So I had one baby that liked to be breastfed, the other one that didn't. While they were in hospital, they were also bottle fed. So we were doing the mixture of bottle and breastfeeding. Now, to get your babies out of special care, they need to be feeding well and growing well. So I knew time wasn't on our side for breastfeeding because Ivy didn't like to be breastfed. So I didn't want to force that upon her when that wasn't what she wanted to do. And even though I appreciated my time in special care, I really just wanted to get home and get settled and have the babies back in my own space. 2 weeks in special care can feel like a really long time. So I would express breast milk for them every 3 hours. We would bottle feed. The top up with formula would be 10 mil, sometimes it would be 40 mil. It really just depended on my supply and how that was going, which really is like a bit of a roller coaster for a while until you establish a normal supply for you. I also found that my supply would be heavily affected by how much sleep I had and how exhausted I was. So when we got home, we were doing a mix of breastfeeding and bottle feeding, predominantly bottle feeding with express breast milk and then topping up with formula. I tried to keep the babies on the same feeding schedule as much as possible. And if one of them would wake up early or I thought they were hungry, I would try and breastfeed them as a top up to get them through until the next bottle feed. After a couple of months, the mixed feeding of breastfeeding and bottle feeding was getting a bit confusing. I wasn't sure how much they were having from the breastfeeding, and Ivy also still didn't like it, but I was still trying to breastfeed her every now and then, and it was just getting a little bit too much, too messy. Ivy also had colic, Remy had reflux, and it was getting very overwhelming. So after a little while, I decided just to move straight to the bottles, and I was still expressing breast milk. I did that for 5 months and I expressed every 3 hours. I was literally, I felt like a robot, and I don't even know how I did it looking back. Literally all through the night as well. It would be 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 12 o'clock, just on repeat. I am really glad that I did it and I am very proud of myself. I just wanted to try for as long as possible, and after a while I found that my supply got really good. It actually ended up making heaps of milk and I had the right amount that I needed for the bottles, which was fantastic, and I can give them purely breast milk for a while. Then when they started to drink more and more and more, I was still able to give them a really good amount of breast milk and then just top up with a little bit of formula. You can do this in a couple of different ways. So you can either express breast milk and then top up with formula, and you can have that in the same bottle. So I didn't have any issues with that. I would just put the breast milk in and then top up with whatever I needed with the formula, and then I would store it in the fridge. Otherwise, you can also give it to them clean. So you can do straight breast milk in a bottle and then top it up with formula after they have drunk all of the breast milk. It really just depends on how your babies go with finishing their bottles. Mine were finishing their bottles no problem, and I knew that they would drink the two combined. So I just found like it was a lot easier just to have it all in the one place, just grab a bottle ready to go, other than giving them something, waiting, and then like trying to set up pour more formula or whatever it was, make that up, and then give it to them in a fresh bottle. It was just easier just to have it all in one. So with the bottle feeding, obviously the sterilization of the bottles is just non-stop and the cleaning is non-stop. I did find that it was a really effective way and efficient way for me to feed the babies as fast as possible, especially like if you have help or someone else to help feed a baby while you feed a baby, or if you have a double bouncer, it just really helps to feed them at the same time and keep them on the same schedule. And I'll talk more about that later. With the bottles as well, they have different teat sizes, so just make sure that you are progressing with the teats as your baby progresses. And then they have one for 3 months plus, 6 months plus, 9 months plus, that kind of thing. So the baby suck gets stronger and they'll start wanting more milk in their mouth. So it really does help if you have the right teat at the right time as well. I cannot tell you as well how important it was for me to be really, really prepared and really, really organized. Sometimes I would have upwards of 6 to 8 bottles ready to go in the fridge, and that is because there were days when, you know, maybe my express got pushed out by an hour or so because the babies were being quite a lot at the time, and I just didn't have, I was completely run off my feet. I didn't have time to express in that very tiny window that I had. So yeah, it was really good to have pre-prepared bottles ready to go for when your babies get hungry. Now let's talk about different types of formulas. At the beginning, I used the same formula as the one that they were having in hospital. I wanted to kind of keep them on the same one just for that consistency, and it seemed to be fine with them in hospital, so I thought it would be fine when they got home. I do think after a while, once they became more awake, it probably wasn't the best formula for them. At times, I do feel like it made them like maybe a little bit constipated or gave them some wind, which obviously is you don't want. So I did try a few different formulas, and obviously I did the formula feeding changing over schedule, which is like, you know, 1 a day for 1 day, and then 2 a day the next day, and then 3 bottles a day for the next day. So it's kind of like a process as well. You can't just go cold turkey and change the formula over. There is a bit of a way to do that. So I tried that a couple of times and it didn't work, but we eventually landed on one that was recommended by a twin specialist, and it's called Aptamil Allopro. Since I have been on that, it's been really great for them. The parent company that owns the brand of the formula also does a multiples discount. If you are a mum of multiples or you are a parent of multiples, keep your eyes out, because there are some brands that in particular do discounts, which is very, very beneficial. And obviously, like, because you're going through twice the amount of formula as one baby, you're gonna need that extra cash. Remy also had really bad reflux for like the first 7 to 9 months, and he literally, no joke, he vomited after every single feed. It was insane. And it kind of peaked around the 9-month point. We went to quite a few doctors about it, and they said that it was normal what he was going through. He wasn't ever distressed or upset when he would vomit. It was sort of just like a regurgitation of the milk. And they said it was that the valve on his esophagus just needed a little bit more time to mature, and that he would eventually grow out of it. It was true. He did grow out of it after 9 months. But yeah, there were times when you were just like, please don't vomit. And then, yeah, it would go everywhere. There were also times when my husband and I would be trying to eat dinner, and they would be down for sleep, down for bed, and we would have to attend to him like 7, 8 times just because he started to get really uncomfortable around that 9-month point. Yeah, during that process and in between the 1 to 9 month period that he was having this reflux, we did ask a lot about different types of formulas and got some different opinions. And a lot of the doctors and pediatricians were like, it's formulas all to a standard, there's not very much variation, which is quite interesting, because if you talk to different parents, you'll find that, you know, a lot of people say, oh, this one totally agrees with my baby and this one definitely doesn't. So I guess it's just all down to personal opinion and experience. But yeah, the Aptamil Allopro one has been fantastic for us, and I highly recommend. Okay, so expressing breast milk or pumping. I'm just gonna get out my breast pump, show you guys. Hello, old friend. It's been a long time. All right. I actually need to sell it, which is why it's packed away. I have no use for it anymore. But this here is a hospital grade double electric breast pump. It's a Spectra S1. It is portable and it has a rechargeable battery. Honestly, it was an absolute godsend. I highly, highly recommend getting a good breast pump. Because I used it every 3 hours, I knew that I wanted to get a really, really good one and one that pumped really well. This does the trick. I also wanted one that did both breasts at the same time and one that I could move around quite easily. So literally you just like take this wherever, you charge it up and you can go any place, any room. I even had to do it in the car sometimes because you just got to do what you got to do. This breast pump is amazing. I would recommend getting a really good breast pump if you can. I didn't get any mastitis at all. And honestly, it made my life so much easier. With expressing as well, it did take a while for my supply to build up. So I'd say it took a good 6 weeks to reach my maximum capacity for breast milk production. Sometimes during the day you get a really good amount. Sometimes it wouldn't be so great. And I did realize, you'll start to realize some patterns as well. So you'll know like, okay, like first thing in the morning is normally pretty good or pretty bad. It was quite interesting. A lot of the lactation consultants were like, a lot of women say that, you know, they get really good milk in their first pump of the day. I always found that was not the case for me because I'd get no sleep. After about towards the end of my 5 months, when I was starting to wean off, I started to go from like 12 o'clock. I do a pump at 12 o'clock and then like one at 5 o'clock. But your breasts just get really full. It is a demand and supply thing. So you need to train your body when to produce milk and when not to produce milk. So if you have twins and you're looking to express milk, depends on what you have time for. Even if you can do it 4 hourly or 5 hourly, I think that would be a great help. And it really did take a long time to start weaning off as well. I remember trying to wean off expressing every 3 hours was really quite difficult. And honestly, I think it took me like a month to stop producing breast milk. And I just was trying to avoid mastitis and my body was just like so used to producing all this milk. So yeah, that in itself is a whole different story. But if you are looking to wean yourself off, let me know if you want more information on that. Don't be hard on yourself if sometimes you get 10 mil and sometimes you get 100 mil. You just never know. And even if you're not expressing very much, I promise it gets easier. Honestly, this was like one of my most hated things to do. And by the end of it, I was like, you know, I'm pretty used to it now. It just became like a daily habit. So anyways, get yourself a good breast pump. It is worth their weight in gold. So feeding pillows. This here is called the Twinsy feeding pillow. Honestly, it was like my best friend. I used this every single feed for months and months and months until they could start crawling. So it was really important to have something like this where you can prop both babies up. Let me pull this into the screen. It's really big. You can prop both babies up, one on each, and feed them like that. It was also really good for burping, and sometimes when they got a little bit bigger, they could also have like a little nap on it. It's a cushion, so it's really comfortable. I would put it on the floor and they'd just have like a little dozy, and it was like really cute. But anyways, having something like this is like really important. The other one that you could do if you are going to do all breastfeeding, there was one called My Breast Friend, and I've just sold that off, but I did use that in hospital when I was breastfeeding. You can either do one baby or it kind of helps you breastfeed both babies at the same time. Kind of like goes around you like this. And you can put a baby here and a baby here and feed them that way as well. So if you are interested in something like this, I can leave some links in the description box for you. So make sure you check them out. But honestly, if you had to buy like one thing for twins, it would be this. This as well brings back so many memories because I remember when they were so small, we literally had to put Muslim wraps and other things in here because they were so small that they could like literally fall through. So we're always worried about that. So we had to put stuff underneath it just to hold them up. I can't believe they're that small. They're so big now. Okay, let's talk about feeding schedules. This is an important one, and I will say to any twin mom or mom of multiples, if you can, get them on the same schedule. This one was honestly really, really important for me, and I'm so glad I did it. There is literally no time to waste when you have newborns. So with my babies, I had to feed them when they go home every 3 hours, and that was because they were so small. Obviously, that's not quite what everyone has to do, but it was just drilled into me that until they reach a certain weight, they need to be on a 3 hourly feed. So literally around the clock, my husband and I were waking up at all hours of the night, trying to feed them, trying to get them to gain weight. Looking back, it was, I don't know how we did it, but we did it. We survived. It was really important to try and give them those feeds so that they would grow because they really, really, really needed it. And it took them a long time to get to where other babies are born, I am glad that we stuck to a schedule and did it really strictly, just because preemie babies really do need that extra helping hand. So as I said, when we were in hospital, they said to base their feeds off their weight. So if they're 3 kg, they feed every 3 hours. If they're 4 kg, they feed every 4 hours. If they are 1.7 kg or 2.1 kg like mine, we could do every 3 hours at the absolute maximum. Like, we could not push that at all. Feeding a baby, burping a baby, settling a baby, that could take like 45 minutes to an hour. So if you're doing that one after the other, that is like, 2 hours gone. Then you've got to go express milk, and then you get like maybe 5 minutes to yourself before you have to, if you're lucky. No, actually you don't, because you got to sterilize bottles as well. So you have no time to yourself, and then you got to start feeding them again. Obviously this was just for, tiny babies. If you have more time, that's great, but also babies don't do exactly what you want them to do. In case you haven't noticed, they don't wake up exactly on 4 hours and go, I'm ready for a bottle now, I'll wait patiently. When babies are hungry, they're hungry. So even if you have a baby that's being fed every 4 hours or 5 hours, they may not stick to that. So yeah, having babies on a feeding schedule, especially twins, so important. We had to write down every feed that we did in a notebook, and I actually just threw it out, but I wish you could see it. It was literally crazy. And if like you or your partner doing a feed are looking after their feed and letting the other one sleep, then it's also important to see like when to write it down in either a notebook or have it in an app so you can see exactly when the last person fed them and what time you should be feeding them. Because our babies were so small, we literally had to wake them sometimes, especially overnight. Excuse my voice. Especially overnight, there were times that we had to wake them up, which wasn't fun, but I knew that they needed the milk. I did not want their blood sugars to drop, and I was petrified of not doing the right thing. I just wanted to do exactly what I was meant to do, exactly as the nurses and the doctors had told me, and we did, and it worked really well for us. With the feeding them on the same schedule thing, I will say that there is a slight flexibility in that, and not that you have to feed them at exactly the same time every time. As long as they are within about that half an hour of each other, it's okay. And that works well for people who are at home by themselves and don't always have an extra set of hands. I've always said that you need a set of hands per baby, and twin mums of multiples know this more than anyone. That is probably like the one thing that is so hard about having multiples, is that you never can dedicate 100% of yourself to a baby at any one time. You always have another baby to consider. I was very lucky that my husband was happy to help with feeding and able to help with feeding. He was a very hands-on dad. I guess with twins and multiples, you literally have to. It's all hands on deck. There is no sub in, sub out. It's just literally grab a baby and do what you can. But yeah, if there are days as well where you do have grandparents or family or friends coming to help, try and get them to come at times when you know you're going to need it. So whether it be at times when they're going to need to be fed, so that you can have a baby, they can have a baby. It's nice for them, it's nicer for you, because you know they're in good hands and everyone is happy getting fed at the same time. That is all I can think of for now. I'm sure that I may have missed a couple of things, so if there's anything that you can think of that you want more information on, make sure you let me know in the comment section. I will absolutely get back to you, and I hope that this video has helped. If you do like this video, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and don't forget to hit the bell as well. Keep up the great work, twin mama. You are doing amazing. Bye.